Look, folks, here's the truth. And it's a dark truth, believe me. People will use you if you let them. They will take advantage, they will drain you, and they will throw you away when they're done. It happens in politics, it happens in business, and it happens in life. And I know this better than anybody. I've seen it my whole career, and I'll tell you, it's not going to happen to us, not anymore. You know, when I first ran for president, everybody laughed. Everybody said, he can't win. He's not a politician. He's not part of the system. They mocked me on television, the so-called experts, the anchors, the people who thought they were smarter than you. They all laughed. But I'll tell you something very important. The reason they laughed wasn't because they thought I couldn't do the job. It's because they knew I would do the job. They knew I would break up the game they had been playing for decades. And that game was very simple. They were using you. The politicians, the media, the lobbyists, the donors, all of them, they were all part of the same machine. And this machine wasn't built to serve the people. It was built to serve itself. It was built to take your hard work, your tax dollars, your dreams, and use them for their benefit, not yours. Think about it. For decades, factories were closing down all across America. Towns that used to thrive were becoming ghost towns. Entire communities lost their jobs because politicians in Washington made deals that were great for China, great for Mexico, great for other countries, but terrible for you, the American worker. Did they care? No, because while you were struggling, they were cashing in. They were making speeches for hundreds of thousands of dollars. They were sitting on corporate boards. They were cutting deals behind closed doors. They weren't losing sleep when your factory shut down. They weren't worried about your mortgage, your bills, your family. They didn't care. That's what I mean when I say they were using you. They were using your labor, your loyalty, your silence. You kept working. You kept paying taxes. You kept voting for the same old names because you thought they would represent you. But they weren't representing you. They were representing themselves. They were representing the donors who lined their pockets. They were representing the special interests who flew them around the world in private jets. And they left you with nothing but broken promises. Let's talk about the media, the fake news media. And it really is fake. They were part of it too. They were supposed to tell the truth, to hold the powerful accountable. But instead, they became the loudspeakers for the very people who were using you. They told you everything was fine while your job was shipped to China. They told you America was doing great while your neighborhood fell apart. They told you to just accept it because that's the way things are now. And if you dared to question them, if you dared to stand up and say, wait a minute, this isn't right, they called you names. They called you racist. They called you ignorant. They called you a conspiracy theorist. They tried to shame you into silence because your voice, your real voice, was a threat to their control. And then you've got the endless wars. For decades, Washington sent our young men and women overseas to fight battles that had nothing to do with us. We spent trillions of dollars. We lost thousands of lives. We came back with wounded heroes, heroes who were never treated the way they should have been. And for what? To rebuild other countries while our own bridges were crumbling, our schools were failing, and our borders were wide open. Who benefited from those wars? Not you, not the American people. The defense contractors got richer. The politicians got their talking points. But you paid the price. Your sons and daughters paid the price. That's what I mean when I say they were using you. Even your vote, the most sacred thing in a democracy, even that was used. They made you think your vote mattered, but then they ignored you the second they got into office. They made big promises on the campaign trail, then turned around and did whatever their donors told them to do. It was a scam, folks, a total scam. And it went on for years and years while hardworking Americans were left behind. They thought you wouldn't notice. They thought you wouldn't fight back. They thought you would just accept it because that's the way it had always been. And for a long time, that's exactly what happened. People got used to it. Families got used to being squeezed. Workers got used to being replaced. Soldiers got used to being sent to wars that never ended. You were being used, and you didn't even realize how deep it went. But I came along and I said no more. I wasn't part of their club. I wasn't bought and paid for. I didn't owe anybody favors. And most importantly, I didn't need their money. That's why they hated me. Because I was the one guy who couldn't be used. I was the one guy who couldn't be controlled. I was the one guy who was actually fighting for you. And when I said America first, I meant it. I meant jobs for Americans. I meant factories reopening. I meant borders that actually protect our citizens. I meant taking care of our veterans before we take care of anyone else. And they hated it because it meant the game was over. So when you look back, understand this. The system wasn't broken. It was working exactly the way they designed it. It just wasn't working for you. It was working for them. And the second you stop letting them use you, the second you start fighting back, the second you demand leaders who actually work for the people, that's when the whole thing changes. That's when America becomes great again. But I said no more. I told them straight to their faces, the American people are not going to be used anymore. We are done being played for fools. We are done letting other countries take advantage of us while our own leaders sit back and watch it happen. And I made a promise, and you know I always keep my promises, that we would take our country back, we would put America first, and we would finally do what no politician ever had the courage to do. And let me tell you, when I said those words, when I stood up on that stage and said America first, the establishment went crazy. The media screamed. The politicians panicked. The globalists called me dangerous. Dangerous. You know why? Because for the first time in a long, long time, somebody was actually standing up for you. Somebody was standing up for the workers in Michigan, the farmers in Iowa, the truckers in Pennsylvania, the oil workers in Texas. Somebody was standing up for the forgotten men and women of this country, the people they wanted to keep forgotten forever. They weren't afraid of me. They were afraid of you. They were afraid that you were finally waking up, finally realizing the scam, finally saying, we're not going to let you use us anymore. And that terrified them. Because once you know the truth, once you see the game, you can't unsee it. You don't go back to sleep. And they knew that if the American people ever truly woke up, their whole operation, their whole house of cards would collapse. So what did they do? They attacked me. They called me every name in the book. They tried to destroy me. They tried to destroy my family. They tried to destroy everybody around me. They spied on my campaign. They pushed fake investigations. They created hoaxes out of nothing, all because I refused to play their game. I refused to be used. And by refusing, I gave you the power to refuse too. That's why they came after me so hard. It was never about me. It was always about you. It was about keeping you in line, keeping you silent, keeping you used. Think about it. When we brought jobs back, when companies started saying they would stay in America instead of shipping jobs overseas, who benefited? You did, not them. When we cut taxes for working families, when we cut regulations that were strangling small businesses, who benefited? You did, not them. When we secured the border and said we're going to protect American citizens, who benefited? You did, not them. Every single step we took was about giving power back to you. And that's what scared them the most, because their entire system runs on your weakness. Their entire operation depends on you being used and not even realizing it. And I'll tell you this, when I walked into the White House, it wasn't just a building. It was a fortress for the insiders, for the people who thought they owned this country. And I had to tear it down piece by piece. Every meeting, every decision, every policy, it was a battle. They didn't want me to succeed. They didn't want you to succeed. They wanted business as usual, because business as usual meant they stayed rich, they stayed powerful, and you stayed quiet. But we didn't stay quiet, did we? We spoke louder than ever. We fought harder than ever. We showed them that the American people are not pawns to be moved around a chessboard. We showed them that you are not some endless resource to be drained and discarded. We showed them that this country belongs to its citizens, not to the lobbyists, not to the globalists, not to the politicians who've never had a real job in their lives. And you know what happened? The world respected us again. Other nations, for the first time in decades, said, wait a second, America is strong again. America isn't rolling over anymore. America isn't letting itself be used. Countries that laughed at us, that ripped us off, suddenly wanted to negotiate fair deals. Countries that thought they could push us around started to think twice, because they finally knew that America was back, and America wasn't going to be used anymore. But here's the thing. The moment we started winning, the moment we started taking care of our people, the establishment doubled down. They said, we have to stop this. We cannot allow the people to have this much power. And that's when they launched their biggest attacks, their biggest lies, their biggest schemes, because they were desperate. Desperate to put you back in the box. Desperate to make sure you never believed in your own power again. I want you to understand this. Everything they did to me, every smear, every hoax, every investigation, it was all designed to send you a message. The message was, don't you dare stand up. Don't you dare resist. Don't you dare stop being used, because if you do, we will destroy you, just like we tried to destroy him. That was their message. But here's our message. We don't back down, we don't give up, and we don't let anyone use us ever again. And so when I said America first, it wasn't just a slogan. It was a revolution. It was a declaration that the American people would never again be second class in their own country. It was a declaration that the American worker, the American family, the American dream, those things would come before the profits of foreign countries and before the power of corrupt politicians. That's what I meant, and that's why they feared it so much. Because for the first time in a long time, the people had someone who couldn't be bought, couldn't be silenced, and couldn't be used. And let me tell you something. Once that spirit is awakened, once people feel that pride again, that dignity again, that sense of control again, you can't take it away. You can try, you can lie, you can cheat, you can push all the propaganda in the world, but you can't put the genie back in the bottle. The American people have tasted freedom again. They have seen what it feels like to have a government that works for them, not against them. And no matter how hard they try, no matter how many tricks they pull, they will never be able to use you the same way again. That's the truth. And it's not just politics, folks. This is life, everyday life. You see it at work, you see it in friendships, you see it in families, sometimes even in the people closest to you. People will use you if you let them. They'll take your kindness, they'll take your hard work, they'll take your loyalty, and they'll keep taking until there's nothing left to take. And when you're drained, when you're tired, when you have nothing left to give, do you know what they'll do? They'll walk away. They'll find somebody else to use, and they'll never look back. That's the sad truth. I've seen it in business, I've seen it in politics, and I've seen it in personal life. I've seen employees who work harder than anyone else in the room. But instead of being rewarded, instead of being respected, they're piled with more and more work while everybody else slacks off. Why? Because they let it happen. They think if I just keep working, if I keep giving, someone will notice and appreciate it. But the truth is, if you don't set boundaries, if you don't stand up, people don't respect you, they use you, and you end up tired, underpaid, underappreciated, and forgotten. I've seen friends, and I use that word carefully, who aren't really friends at all. They smile in your face, they laugh with you, they hang around you when things are good, but the second you say no, the second you stop giving them what they want, they're gone. Have you had that happen? Of course you have. We all have. And you know what? Those people were never real friends. They were users. They were there for what they could get, not for who you are. And when you finally see it, when you finally understand it, you realize they were never on your side to begin with. And family, and this one hurts the most. Sometimes even family will use you. Not all, but some. They'll guilt you, they'll lean on you, they'll take and take and take, because they know you'll give. They know you'll bend over backwards to help them. And suddenly you're carrying everybody's problems, everybody's bills, everybody's mistakes, while nobody lifts a finger to help you. And then you wake up one day and realize you've been used by the very people who should have been protecting you. Now, let me tell you something very important. Weakness attracts users. If you show weakness, if you show that you'll give everything and never say no, the users will find you. It's like sharks smelling blood in the water. They'll circle, they'll test you, and if you don't fight back, they'll attack. And they'll keep attacking until you're drained, finished, done. That's why strength is so important. People respect strength. Even people who don't like you will respect you if you're strong. But if you're weak, if you let people walk all over you, nobody respects that. I remember in business, I had people come to me begging for deals, begging for opportunities. And some of them were honest, hardworking people, and I respect that. But others, you could see it in their eyes. They were there to use you. They didn't want a partnership. They didn't want to build something. They wanted to take what they could and run. And if you didn't know how to spot it, if you didn't know how to say no, you'd lose everything. And I've seen brilliant, talented people lose it all because they couldn't stop others from using them. And here's the thing, it doesn't start big, it starts small. Someone asks for a little favor, you say yes. Then they ask for another, you say yes again. Then it becomes bigger and bigger, and before you know it, you're doing everything for them and nothing for yourself. And they expect it. They don't thank you. They don't appreciate you. They expect it because you train them to expect it. And that's the trap. That's how people get used. But the moment you stand up, the moment you say, no, I won't be taken advantage of anymore, everything changes. At first, people will be angry. They'll call you selfish. They'll call you mean. They'll say, what happened to you? You've changed. But what really happened is you stopped letting them use you. You stopped being their doormat. And do you know what happens after the anger fades? Respect. Even the very people who tried to use you will respect you once they see you have boundaries, once they see you have strength. And I'll tell you something else. Sometimes the people who use you aren't even aware they're doing it. They've gotten so used to taking, they think it's normal. They don't even see it as wrong. And you go along with it because you don't want conflict, because you don't want to lose them, because you think it's easier to just say yes. But in the long run, it destroys you. It destroys your confidence. It destroys your energy. It destroys your ability to live your own life. And that's not fair. That's not right. Think about relationships. How many people stay in relationships where they're constantly giving, constantly sacrificing, constantly bending, while the other person just takes and takes and takes? And they think, well, maybe if I give a little more, if I try a little harder, things will get better. But it doesn't get better, it gets worse. Because the more you give without demanding respect, the more they take, until one day you realize you've lost yourself. And that's the ultimate tragedy, losing yourself because you allowed someone else to use you. Now let's talk about work again, because this is important. Employers will use you if you let them. They'll give you the extra shifts, the extra projects, the extra responsibility, without giving you the pay, without giving you the promotion, without giving you the respect you deserve. And you think, if I just keep proving myself, one day they'll notice. But most of the time, they won't. They'll just keep piling it on because you never said no. You never demanded your worth. And then one day, you look around, and someone who did half the work, someone who demanded more from the start, they're promoted above you. Why? Because they didn't let themselves be used. And it goes even deeper. Society uses you. The system uses you. They want you working, paying taxes, buying things, staying quiet. They want you distracted. They want you tired. They want you too busy to ask questions. They don't want you strong. They don't want you independent. They don't want you saying no, because the second you do, the second you break free, they lose control. But here's the truth. You don't have to live that way. You don't have to be used. You can say no. You can set boundaries. You can put yourself first. And I know some people will say, but isn't that selfish? No, it's not selfish. It's survival. It's respect. It's dignity. If you don't respect yourself, nobody else will. If you don't protect yourself, nobody else will. And the second you start doing it, the second you stop letting people use you, your life changes. You have more energy. You have more confidence. You have more control. And the users, the ones who were never really there for you, they disappear. They move on to somebody else they can drain. And good riddance, because you don't need them. You don't need people who only see you as a resource to be exploited. You need people who respect you, who give back, who stand by your side even when you're not giving them something. Those are the people worth keeping. The rest, let them go. So remember this. In life, in work, in love, in everything, people will use you if you let them, and it never ends well. But the second you stand up, the second you draw the line, the second you say no more, you take back your power. And when you take back your power, everything gets better. Your relationships get stronger, your work gets better, your life gets fuller, because you're no longer being drained. You're no longer being played. You're no longer being used. And that's the way it should be. That's the way it has to be. So here's the message today, and it's a very powerful one. People will use you if you let them. They will take everything. They will use your time, your energy, your kindness, your loyalty, your love. And when you have nothing left, when you're on the floor, when you can barely stand, they'll move on without a second thought. And you have to understand that. You have to see it clearly. Because once you see it, you can never let it happen again. Now, I want you to think about this very carefully. It's not just people in your personal life. It's not just a bad boss or a fake friend. It's the whole system. The entire system is designed to use you. The politicians use your vote. They show up every 2 or 4 years. They shake your hand. They make promises. And the second they win, they forget you. You're gone. They used you for your vote, and then they go right back to serving the lobbyists, the donors, the special interests. That's how the game has always been played. The media uses your attention. They want your outrage, your fear, your anger, because that keeps you watching. They don't want to inform you. They don't want to empower you. They want to control you. They push stories that divide you, that scare you, that keep you glued to the screen. And while you're distracted, they're laughing all the way to the bank. You get anxiety, you get confusion, you get lies, and they get rich. They're using you. The corporations use your labor. They want you working harder, longer, giving them everything you've got, while they ship jobs overseas, while they cut corners, while they reward themselves with millions in bonuses. They tell you to be a team player, to sacrifice, to give everything to the company. But ask yourself, when have they ever sacrificed for you? When have they put you first? They don't, because it's not about you. It's about using you until you're replaceable and then discarding you. And the globalists, the ones who think they run the world, they use your country. They use America's strength, America's resources, America's soldiers, America's wealth. They send you to fight their wars, to pay for their programs, to underwrite their schemes. And what do you get in return? Nothing. Worse than nothing. You get debt. You get division. You get decline. That's what happens when you let them use you. But it doesn't stop there. It goes deeper. Even in your personal life, this pattern repeats itself. Friends use you. Family members use you. Co-workers use you. Sometimes even your spouse or partner uses you, and you let it happen because you don't want to say no, because you don't want to rock the boat, because you think it's easier to just keep giving. But every time you give without getting respect, every time you give without boundaries, you lose a piece of yourself. You lose confidence, you lose dignity, you lose the ability to live for yourself. And that's why I'm telling you, it has to stop. It must stop. You can no longer allow people to use you. You can no longer allow the system to use you. You can no longer allow the elites, the insiders, the manipulators, the fakes to take your life, your energy, your country, and treat you like you don't matter, because you do matter. You matter a lot, more than you've ever been told. People ask me all the time, what's the secret? How did you succeed in business? How did you succeed in politics? And the truth is simple. I never let anyone use me. I never let anyone drain me, take advantage of me, control me. If somebody tried, I cut them off. If somebody disrespected me, I stood up. If somebody thought they could outsmart me, I showed them I was stronger, tougher, and smarter. And that's what you have to do in your own life. You don't have to be a billionaire. You don't have to be president. You don't have to be famous. You just have to be strong enough to say, no more. You will not use me. And when you do that, everything changes. Your whole life changes. The people who were draining you, they disappear. The ones who respected you, they stay. The ones who never cared about you, they fade away. And suddenly, you're surrounded by people who value you, who lift you up, who treat you with the respect you deserve. And that's when life starts getting good. That's when life starts making sense. Now let's bring it back to this country, because this is very important. America has been used for too long, used by weak leaders, used by greedy corporations, used by foreign nations, used by globalists who never cared about you or this country. And what happened? Jobs left, factories closed, borders collapsed, wars drained us, families broke apart, communities crumbled. They used America like they used you, and they thought they could keep doing it forever. But when we said America first, when we stood up and said no more, everything shifted. For the first time in decades, the people were in charge again. For the first time in decades, the users, the politicians, the media, the globalists were on the run, and they hated it. They hated it because their power depends on your weakness, their success depends on your silence, their wealth depends on your poverty. They can only win if you lose, and that's why they fear strength so much. I want you to understand something that very few people will ever tell you. The moment you stop letting people use you, you become dangerous to them. Very dangerous. Because they can't control you anymore. They can't guilt you. They can't shame you. They can't manipulate you. They can't say, do this or else, because you know your worth. You know your power. And once you know that, you can't be played. You can't be moved around like a pawn. You become the one in control. And this applies to you as an individual, and it applies to us as a nation. A strong person who refuses to be used is unstoppable. A strong country that refuses to be used is unbeatable. That's the lesson. That's the truth. And that's the dark secret the users don't want you to hear. Because if you hear it, if you believe it, if you live it, then the game is over. Their control is finished. Their entire system collapses. So here's what you must do. Say no. Start small if you have to. Say no when someone asks for more than they give. Say no when someone tries to take your time, your energy, your dignity. Say no when the system tells you to shut up and obey. Say no when politicians try to scare you into silence. Say no when the media tries to divide you. Say no when anyone, anywhere tries to use you, because that one word no is the most powerful weapon you will ever have. And once you start saying it, once you start living it, once you stop letting yourself be used, you will find something incredible. Freedom, real freedom. Freedom from the chains of users, freedom from the lies of manipulators, freedom from the system that wants to drain you. And when you have that freedom, you become unstoppable. Your life takes off. Your country takes off. Everything becomes possible. So remember this forever. People will use you if you let them. The system will use you if you let it. The world will use you if you let it. But the moment you stand up, the moment you fight back, the moment you say no, you take your life back. You take your country back. You take your future back. And there's nothing, absolutely nothing, that can stop you once you do that. Believe me. That's the Trump way. That's the American way. And together, we're not just going to stop them from using us. We're going to win like never before. Believe me. You see, folks, they tried to convince you that you were weak. They tried to tell you that you were powerless. They tried to make you believe that the system, the politicians, the media, the corporations, the globalists, they were too big, too powerful, too strong. They told you, just accept it, just go along, just stay quiet, that's the way it is. But you know what? That was the lie. That was the greatest lie of all. Because the truth, the real truth, is that the power has always been with you. It has always been with the people. And once you realize that, once you wake up, once you stop letting them use you, nothing in the world can stop you. I've seen it firsthand. When I ran for president, they said it was impossible. They said it couldn't happen. They laughed. They mocked. They called me names. But the American people stood up. The American people said, we've had enough. We're not going to be used anymore. We want a leader who fights for us, not for them. And together we shocked the world. Together we changed history. Together we reminded everyone, the elites, the insiders, the so-called experts, that this country belongs to you, the people, and nobody else. And now, as we look to the future, the lesson is clearer than ever. You cannot be used if you refuse to be used. You cannot be controlled if you refuse to be controlled. You cannot be defeated if you refuse to surrender. That's how life works. That's how freedom works. That's how America works. And that's the spirit we need today. The spirit of strength, the spirit of defiance, the spirit of victory. So I say this to every single one of you. Stop letting them use you. Stop letting the fake news use your attention. Stop letting politicians use your vote and then forget you. Stop letting corporations use your labor while they give you nothing in return. Stop letting so-called friends, so-called allies, so-called leaders drain you of everything you have. No more. No more weakness, no more silence, no more being used. From this day forward, we take back our power. We take back our lives. We take back our country. Because once you do, once you decide that you will never again be used, everything changes. You become stronger. Your family becomes stronger. Your community becomes stronger. And America, the greatest nation in the history of the world, becomes unstoppable. We don't beg. We don't bow. We don't let anyone push us around. We stand tall. We fight hard, and we win. That's what we do. That's what we've always done. And that's what we will do again. So the dark truth is this. Yes, people will use you if you let them. But here's the brighter truth, the bigger truth, the truth that nobody can take away from you. You don't have to let them. You can fight back. You can stand tall. You can say no. And when you do, you don't just survive, you thrive. You don't just exist, you lead. You don't just live, you win. And America, our beloved country, will not be used anymore. Not by foreign nations, not by corrupt politicians, not by the fake news media, not by globalists who care nothing for you. We are America. We are strong. We are proud. We are free. And together we are going to write the next great chapter of this country. A chapter of strength, a chapter of victory, a chapter where the people finally stand up and say, no more. We will not be used. So let's go forward with courage, with confidence, with faith in ourselves and in each other. Let's go forward knowing that the power has always been with us. Let's go forward remembering that when we stand together, when we fight together, when we refuse to be used, nothing, absolutely nothing, can stop us. And let's make sure once and for all that America is never used again. Because when America stops being used, when America starts being respected, when the people are in charge again, we don't just win, we win big. We win so much, you're going to be tired of winning. You're going to say, please, Mr. President, we can't win anymore. It's too much. And I'll look at you and I'll say, I'm sorry, but we're going to keep winning anyway, because we never let anyone use us again, ever. That's the promise. That's the mission. That's the truth. People will use you if you let them, but together we will never let them again. And together we will win. Believe me.